I work with this lovely woman who she had a very difficult childhood where she was neglected and witnessed a lot of physical abuse between her parents and her other elder brothers and sisters. She was never physically abused, but she was totally neglected. So her brain was developed in a void, nothing. No one comes, no one rescues, no one makes it better. So that's her attachment learning. And she had lots of trauma symptoms and she had PTSD and she had lots of flashbacks to memories of being neglected and abandoned and frightened. And we helped her she went to our Compassionate Resilience group, which is a 12-session group with other women to develop her self-compassion. And we use the group format mostly for developing self-compassion because it just lends itself very, very nicely to affiliation and connectedness. So having been through the Compassionate Resilience group, she then came in to my one-to-one therapy and had 16 sessions of trauma memory work. And first off, we kind of narrated the whole story. So we got the framework of the whole story, the roadmap. And then we focused in on the particular flashbacks and nightmares that she was suffering from. And with each flashback and nightmare, we systematically recalibrated the meaning by bringing in a compassionate perspective and a compassionate emotional felt sense using imagery. So an example of that was she had a memory of being left alone when she was about 5 or 6 and feeling very ashamed because she'd gone to school. And at the end of the day, the little children would sort of sit on the bench with their little rucksacks waiting for their parents to pick them up. But no one came for her. And no one could get hold of her parents. And she was eventually, she was actually taken into social care for the night because no one came. And she finds that a really shaming memory, really. Because, there is no greater shame for her than not matter to anyone. No one, it didn't even cross anyone's mind that she needed to be picked up. So we developed a caregiving imagery, which was, in fact, we used a perfect nurturing imagery for her too. And I said, what was it or what is it that you think you would need in that memory? That would make that a different, more helpful or healing experience. She said, nothing much. I just want them to turn up at the doors, go up to me, give me a big hug and just take me home and make me my favourite kind of sandwich and just cuddle me. That's what I want. I said, okay. So she didn't mind about sort of changing memories as such, because you can do what you like with memories, as you well know. You don't have to keep them accurate to the cause. You're changing the emotional felt sense. So what we did was we engaged her in the exercises of breathing. So we settled her mind. We brought her imagery online. And this is really important that we bring the compassionate imagery first. And then we say, right, let's bring the trauma memory, the memory of you being alone, to this mind state. And this is really important, that we bring the compassionate imagery, the compassionate system online first before we invite the trauma memory to the conscious mind that, relive it. It's really important because that's when you can keep it engaged and it can do its work. If you do it the other way around, it is incredibly difficult to bring a compassionate imagery into a highly threatened trauma mind. It won't have any of it. So it's important you get it that way around. So we brought her perfect nurturing felt sense online, and I just invited her to relive that memory. So through a reliving paradigm, as a traditional reliving exposure paradigm. Let's go over it as if it were happening again. But this time, we've worked out this is what your perfect nurturer is going to do in the imagery. And what happens, and what happens quite typically, is that the emotional sense just dissipates. It just changes, because the compassionate system keeps the threat out so that you can bring new emotional insights into the experience. So that's when you get the reintegration and the update of the emotional felt sense. So that's effectively, you want to put that into different language. The hippocampus is engaged and you're bringing in the threat memory and integrating and contextualize it with a new emotional felt sense and popping it away in the long-term memory store is ultimately what's happening. So threat just doesn't feel threatening when you have the compassionate system online, because they're reciprocally inhibitory. You can't have them both at the same time. So it's really important you get that one on first before you bring the threat to that state. We very systematically work through all her key flashbacks and memories that caused her distress, okay, by using either imagery rescripting or flashback updates. And then at the end of having gone through the key emotional experiences, we did a couple of things. We wrote some letters to her parents, compassionate letters, about her, sort of as she felt, finally speaking her truth. She didn't send the letters, they were symbolic, but she voiced from a compassionate perspective her experience of her childhood. And we also wrote a compassionate account of her life through the lens of her self-compassion. And that became the kind of symbolic ending of the journey, where the book, if I do it visually, the traumatized chapter open, thrust in the face, defining everything you see, to closed on the shelf, a sad part of my life, but no longer dominating the version of me that I want to be.